Right, class, we will now move on to the second part. See, we've just looked at the meaning of link to and link by and how that will help us to form a resident. Now, but in 7.1b, okay, you must see this carefully. Now, this rule only apply to 7.1b. Now, it says that provided any temporary absent from Malaysia. So what do you mean by temporary absent? That means you're not in the country, but we will assume that you're in the country. Okay, so that's the concept, that this is the idea that we will assume you're in the country. So it says that provided any temporary absent from Malaysia that is due to any one of these three. Number one, it must be connected with service in Malaysia. For example, is to do with your work. Okay, so you're employed and owing to the service matter. That means your boss is sending you overseas. So connected to the service and owing to the service matter, you need to leave the country, or you need to attend conference, or you need to go for a seminar or study abroad. But the basic thing is it must connect to the service in Malaysia. So it must be to do with your work. Now then, number two, it can also be owed to ill health. So you can also be leaving the country due to health reason. Now if you see the issue here on ill health, it says that it's either involving himself or member of his immediate family. Now what do you mean by the word immediate family? Since this is not defined in the law, so one of the way we can get a reference is through the public ruling. So if you look at the definition given in the public ruling, it has been defined that immediate family refers to, I'm going to write here, it's your, yes, spouse and children, and including parents. Okay, so immediate family will fall into all these. Okay, now that is spouse, children, parents. So this is what we mean by ill health. Okay, immediate family. So if it's anything to do with health issue concerning yourself or any one of these, we can take that as temporary absent. Now finally, the third one is, they say, in respect of social visit, and that must not exceed 14 days in total. So again, what do you mean by social visit? Well, basically, if you refer to a case law, is when you're leaving the country to visit someone. Like you're visiting your friend, you're visiting your relative overseas, so that's called a social visit. And if you look at public ruling again, social visit has also been defined to include vacation, but except a vacation to your home country. So if that's the case, that means vacation may also be taken as social visit, even though in the case law it was not regarded in that way. But if you look at the ruling, this is what the ruling say, and that's what we're going to accept. Now, so it says that basically, if there's any temporary absence that's due to any of these three reasons, it shall be taken to form part of such period or that period as the case may be. But if he is in Malaysia immediately prior to and after that temporary absence. So even though we deem that you're in the country, but there's also another requirement that he must be in Malaysia prior to and after that temporary absence. So what do you mean by prior to and after that temporary absence? Now a general simple way to understand this is, the TA cannot overlap 2 years, cannot overlap more than 2 years. Okay, it cannot overlap 3 years. It can overlap 2 years, but cannot overlap 3 years. Now, so let's say for example, okay class, I'm going to draw here. Okay, let's just take these as 2010 and 2011. And let's just assume that you're in the country here and you're in the country here. So this is for 20 days and this is for 18 days. Now let's assume that the entire period from here to here, you're not in the country, okay? So you are overseas due to service matter, which is one of the condition of permitted temporary absence. Now from this point to this point, now let's just say that this is 165 days and this is 170 days. Now, so what we're going to do now is to explore, okay? Now, will you be a resident for year of assessment 2010 and 2011? Now, if you want to apply rules from 7.1a, you'll not be able to do that because you need a minimum of 182. So the answer is no. And how about 7.1b? Now, to use 7.1b to be a resident, you will need the period in 2010. Either you link to 2011 or you link by 29. Now, in this example, we do not have 29, so you're going to link to 2011. Now, when you want to link to 2011, you must have the period connected. Now, unfortunately, our friend here is not in the country. But because the reason why he's not in the country is due to service matter, which is taken as a permitted temporary absence. So what you're going to do is you're just going to imagine that the whole period over here is actually in the country. And if you're actually in the country, can you see that the whole period is actually connected? And when you connect, you will need 182 consecutive days. You got to borrow these from the other year. So now we are looking at 2010 and you have to borrow from 2011. Now which means you're looking from here, beginning, and you're going to go all the way until the end of this physical day. Now friend, how many days you see here? So 170 plus 18 is 188. Now you only need 182 consecutive days, right? So in that case, you become a resident by virtue of 1B. Right, so this is for 2010. Now we're going to explore now for 2011. Now same thing, for 2011, you only have 18 days in the country. Now you can't use the 170 and assume that you're in and add the 18 and then say that you have 182 and you fulfill 1A. You can't do that. Now the reason is simply because the provisions for temporary absence apply only under 7.1b. Now we show the law again, you see that? So under 7.1b, you're going to have this provision. So you can't use this for 7.1a. Understand? Okay, or you can't use that for any other section besides 7.1b. So if that's the case, again, you fail 7.1a. Now, so now we're going to use 7.1b. So you will need that period here in 2011 linked with somewhere. So you're going to borrow. Now, where is it that you're going to borrow? See, you can only borrow from 2010 because if you look at this diagram, you do not have 2012, you see. So you're going to borrow from 2010. So to borrow from 2010, you will need to have a link by 2010 with 182. So you're going to link from where? From here. Okay? So you're going to borrow from 2010. That means you can't take into account 2011. So from 2010, you will need 182 until here, the end of the physical day. Now 165 20 185. So again, yes, you fulfill the condition and you'll be a resident. Now see, in each of these cases, you notice that we are only referring to 2010 and 2011, and you have physical days. always before and after the temporary absence. So now the issue is, what if your temporary absence span over 3 years? Now that is what the law say, that you must be in the country immediately before and after that absence. So if you have 3-year period, now let's assume that we have something like this: 10, 11, 12, and you're in the country here. So let's say we have 40 days, 70 days, and throughout the period from 2010 all the way to 2012, now this period we highlight over here. Now let's say you are overseas. Okay, you're overseas. Now again, same thing, you're overseas for one of those 3 reasons. Now we just take, for example, you overseas for ill health, connecting yourself. Okay, so let's just assume that the whole period, now even though it's a bit long, but it's for ill health. Okay, and because ill health does not impose the number of days limit, it's not like social visit, so it doesn't matter how long you stay away as long as it's one of the reason there. Okay, now so let's just imagine that the whole period here is due to ill health. Now when you want to determine the resident status for 2010, you should only look at 2010 with your neighbors, either 9 or 11, but there's no 9 here, so your hope is to borrow from 11. Now no doubt you say ill health is temporary absent, but because the law say that immediately before and after the absence, you need to be in the country. Now you notice that throughout the whole year, you're not in the country. Now just make a quick comparison with this. See, after the absence, you're in the country. See, before the absence, you're in the country. Now you're in the country here, but in 2011 you are not in the country, and you can't go all the way to 2012 because you only allowed to check within the 2 years. Follow now? Okay, so if that's the case, your 1B has failed. Follow? Now the same will apply if you're looking at 2011. You're gonna fail your 1B as well. Now because if you want to link to or link by, now you're gonna see 2010, 2011, and you notice that in 10 or 11, although you're in the country, but you're not in the country in 2011 at all. So you do not have a physical day for you to actually form that temporary absence to become consecutive and link them together. Follow not? Okay, so if that's the case, this part, although you have, but you do not have a physical day. Follow? So if that's the case, you're gonna fail this, and likewise you're gonna fail this. Follow? Now this is what it says here in the law, that you must be in the country prior to and after that temporary absence. Now we're gonna see an example here. Now it says that Mr. Chow is in the country in 2010 from 1st of October to 30th of November for 61 days. Then from 14th of February to 19th of July for 156 days in 2011. Now what will the resident status for 2010 and 2011 be? Now in the first case, we say Chow is sent to overseas by the employer from 1st of December till 13th of February, which means this is the period that joins the gap from 1st of December to 13th of February. Okay, so now if that's the case, in case 1, now you're going to imagine that the period will be 61 days and 156 days, and you're told that you've been sent overseas by the employer, so this is service matter. Now in that case, 2010 and 2011. Now friend, 71A, you will not be able to fulfill the requirement since you're only in the country for just 61 days. Now then we're going to see 71B. Now, to use 71B, you will have to borrow, and you're going to borrow from 2011. Now, this is temporary absent is permitted, so you just got to imagine that the whole period you're in the country. So this is connected now, and once it's connected, you're going to start counting from here, go all the way till the end of the physical days. Now, although it's just 156 here, don't forget you must add the temporary absent, and how many days you have here in the temporary absence. Now, you're going to start counting from 1st of January, until 13th of February. Now, that's actually 31 days plus 13 days. So you have 31 plus 13. Okay? So 31, 13, 156, you definitely have 182. You become a resident. Follow? Now then for 2011, again, you fail A. Since you only have 156, you do not have the minimum of 182. Now you're going to try 1B, and in this case 1B is you're going to borrow them from 2010. So no doubt you have a temporary absent that you're able to link, but the period that you're linking will be up to all the way here. And what date is this? You're going to link all the way to 1st of October. That's what we see. So just do a quick count. So this is October, November, December. You only have 3 months. You will never be able to make up to 182. So again, you fail. So if that's the case, you're going to be resident here, and you will not be resident for 2011 by way of A or B. Okay. Now we're going to see case 2. Now it's the same example now in case 2, with the main difference is I'm changing the reason why he's not in the country to social visit from 1st December to 13th February. Now it's very obvious that in this case the social visit has exceeded 14 days. Okay, has exceeded 14 days. So if that's the case, when you look at this period, you notice that because this is more than 14, okay, so you're going to see that it's nearly 31, 13, plus the remaining from 1st of December, now, which is actually 31 days. So all these, it comes to about nearly 80 days. Now, so once you count that 14 days of social visit, the remaining will not be permitted absence. Then you're going to have a gap. Okay, so if that's the case in case 2, it's quite obvious that 2010 you're going to fail B, as well as 2011 you're going to fail B as well. Follow? Right. So that's the example that explain you on 71B. Okay, so we're going to end this video here, and we're going to proceed on with the next video on C as well as 71D. Right, thank you class.